They say the Devereux household was once filled with laughter, a place where sunlight danced across the walls and the echoes of children playing filled every corner. Elias Devereux, a man known for his unwavering bravery as an exorcist, and his wife Doris had built a life of warmth and love within its walls. But that was before the shadows crept in, before Elias's work began to bleed into the sanctuary of their home. This is the first to fall. 7-year-old Ben Devereux was the gentlest of the children, a boy who lived in quiet harmony with the world around him. His laughter was soft and musical, a sound that could bring warmth even to the darkest of days. His hands, often smudged with charcoal or paint, brought his imaginations to life through drawings, bright, whimsical animals that lined the walls of his room. But the first sign of something amiss came when Ben stopped drawing. It was subtle at first, unfinished sketches left on the kitchen table, his once enthusiastic chatter reduced to short, distracted murmurs. Then came the fever, unrelenting and suffocating. Doris noticed the change immediately. She nursed him through the night, dampening his forehead with cool clothes, whispering soft lullabies as he shivered under the blankets. "Elias," she said one evening, her voice tight with worry, "something's wrong with Ben." Elias, seated at the dining table, barely glanced up from his notes. "Kids get sick, Doris. He'll be fine." But as the days passed, Ben's condition worsened. His once bright eyes grew dull, his small frame weakened, and he began speaking in strange, fragmented phrases. One Tuesday night, Doris found herself lingering at Ben's door after tucking him in. The faint glow of his nightlight bathed the room in a soft, golden hue. "Mommy," Ben whispered, his voice fragile and trembling. Doris turned back. "What is it, sweetheart?" He hesitated, his small hand clutching the edge of his blanket. "The man in the corner. He's watching me." Doris's heart sank. She glanced at the corner of the room, her breath catching as she stared into the shadows. There was nothing there, just the faint outline of a bookshelf. "Ben, there's nothing there. It's just your imagination," she said, her voice as steady as she could manage. Ben's gaze didn't waver. "He's always there," he murmured, his small body trembling beneath the covers. The next morning, the house was unnervingly quiet. Doris moved through the halls, a growing sense of unease clawing at her chest. When she entered Ben's room, the chill in the air made her shudder. Ben lay motionless, his face turned towards the wall. His skin, pale and clammy, glistened faintly in the dim light. "Ben," Doris whispered, rushing to his bedside. She placed a hand on his shoulder, gently shaking him. His eyes fluttered open, but they were glassy, unfocused. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, he said, "He's here, Mommy. He's so cold." Doris pulled him into her arms, tears streaming down her face as she whispered reassurances, but deep down she knew she was powerless. When Elias came home that evening, Doris was waiting for him in the living room. Her face was pale, her eyes streamed red. "Ben is dying," she said bluntly, her voice hollow. Elias frowned, loosening the tie around his neck. "You are overreacting again, Doris. He is sick, but he will pull through." Doris snapped, her grief spilling over into anger. "This isn't just a fever, Elias. Something is happening to him, something you've brought into this house." Elias slammed his hand on the table, his frustration boiling over. "Don't you dare blame me for this. I've done everything for this family. Everything." Doris didn't flinch. "Then look at him. Look at our son and tell me this is normal." That night, Doris stayed by Ben's bedside. His breathing was shallow, his small chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. He muttered incoherently in his sleep, his tiny hands clutching at the blankets. As the hours stretched on, his voice grew fainter until finally there was only silence. "No," Doris whispered, shaking him gently. "No, no, no." But Ben didn't stir. His small body was limp, his face peaceful in a way that broke her heart all over again. The days following Ben's death was a blow. Doris retreated into herself, her grief overwhelming. She moved through the house like a ghost, her interactions with the other children reduced to brief, distracted gestures. The once lively home now felt suffocating, the walls closing in with an oppressive silence. Elias, on the other hand, threw himself into his work, refusing to acknowledge the possibility of something unnatural. He buried his guilt beneath a facade of practicality, avoiding the lingering shadows that seemed to stretch longer than they should. But the Devereux household was not the same. The laughter was gone, replaced by whispers in the dark and the faint, unshakable feeling of being watched. This is only the beginning of the unraveling tale of the Devereux family, a family bound by love but torn apart by the shadows they couldn't escape.